Hey, it's Mallory. Exciting news! I'm hosting the Engage Summit in Raleigh on June 25th and 26th, and I'd love to meet you there. Together, we'll dive into the mind of the modern student, what fires them up, how they interact, and what they expect in today's digital age, and how tools like AI help put them in the driver's seat of their education. We have some terrific speakers, including our closing keynote, New York Times bestselling author Jeff Selingo. Sessions will dig into practical ideas and innovative strategies to get your team more student-centered and ready to adopt AI. And many of your favorite Enrollify hosts are presenting too, like Jamie Hunt, Jenny Lee Fowler, and Brian Gross. Use the discount code Enrollify50 for an extra $50 off your registration. Learn more and register at engage.element451.com. We can't wait to see you there. Hello, listeners. Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network. Creator marketing has sparked lively discussions across our network lately, as it should. According to a survey Adweek ran in January 2024, 92% of brands intend to raise their investment in this area, with 36% of them planning to allocate at least half of their entire digital marketing budget to creator marketing initiatives. Higher ed has had a leg up when it comes to creator marketing. Most institutions have access to hundreds, if not thousands, of creators quite literally in their backyard. Creator marketing is about so much more than talking heads promoting the latest app, product, or service. It's one of the most creative and authentic ways to highlight your school's uniqueness as you're empowering your students to discuss your brand in their tone, style, and voice. What you're about to hear are excerpts from 3 recent conversations that our creators recently had about creator marketing on their podcasts. Jenny Lee Fowler on Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager, Jeremy Tiers on Mission Admissions, and Allison Tercio on The Application. Enjoy the episode and be sure to follow these creators if you like what they have to say by subscribing to their shows wherever you get your podcasts. In this first excerpt, you'll hear Jenny Lee Fowler, host of Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager, speak with Kellen Manning about harnessing the power of social media listening and monitoring to scout and recruit content creators. Kellen is the Director of Digital Public Relations for the Office of Strategic Communications at Penn State University. This episode not only highlights the vital role of user-generated content, but also underscores the potential of faculty members as creators, showcasing an inspiring journey towards building a more connected and creative academic community.
I talk to students when I get brought into classes or just having conversations with people, and I'm like, there's between being a temp and a director, a temp in 2011 and a director in 2024, I'm not doing anything differently. I'm in because I was completely in charge of everything. No one even asked me what I was doing on Instagram in 2012 or Tumblr or Facebook, and I was just learning and failing and making mistakes and then learning from those mistakes and building out what I thought made sense. And now today, it's the only difference is I'm telling other people to do it based on things I learned when I was not even a real employee.
You were the practitioner, you did it and you learned. So one thing I think that you do really uniquely, or, maybe you were one of the first adopters, was you used social listening and monitoring to recruit creators. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, because like I said, when you're a temp that grew into a full-time position, but you're in charge of all these things, I didn't have a team of people I could kind of go to, so I had to figure out how can I get help? Because especially Boston University, I didn't go to Boston University for the job. That was the first time I'd ever been to Boston, was when I got hired for that. So it's I have to learn the culture. I have to do things to connect with alumni that bring in those memories. So I just started looking around and asking the students who were interns in other groups around me and asking them questions in terms of trying to find content. And as I went further into other jobs, whether it be MIT or Harvard, I started paying attention to what our audience was posting, whether it be alumni, students, faculty, and staff. And then I started realizing people were doing some really really cool things that are highlighting the school we work for. So what's stopping me from just like reaching out to them directly, like looking for their email or sending them a DM and inviting them to come talk to me so I can learn more and then potentially work with them. And so I started kind of going forward with that, and it kind of took off from there, and a lot of really cool things to where like community engagement, community collaboration, and user generated content kind of became my staple that I kind of taken from that really started at MIT when I started doing like every week a student takes over, or like I started reaching out directly to people I thought were doing interesting things and saying, can I have this to use here? Or can you do something similar for me? And now at Penn State, I have this team of people to where I'm directing to do it, to where it's like we're reaching out, whether we see someone doing something interesting on TikTok, it's not just a repost. It's like, oh, they're doing something really cool. We could repost it, but why don't we just find their email address or just reach out to them directly on this platform and talk to them about it and see what we can kind of do in collaboration here.
Okay, let's unpack that a little bit. So at MIT, you were reaching out to students, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them were students.
All of them were students.
Okay. And so when you say I liked this, was it an image? Was it a video?
It depends on the person. Like sometimes it could be like, I think this person is really funny, and I think the content they're posting, or whether it at the time, especially at the beginning of MIT, it could be Tumblr. They're writing really cool things, or they're taking really great pictures, or they're utilizing the platform in a way I haven't seen before, but I'm like, that could work for us too. So it started off with just me reaching out to ask them questions like, why'd you do this? What do you get out of this? Like, how do you feel like the reaction is? And then once I get a feel for them and I'm like, oh, I'd really like to work with this person, I get a good vibe from them. I bring up, well, would you want to do this, but for me, for a project I have in mind? And we kind of go from there.
I love that. And the response that you got was always positive?
Yeah, so yes, and I think that was the biggest lesson that like I had to, because when I came into especially MIT, like, and I worked in their student life department to run their social media, they really didn't have a social presence at the time. So like I had to build that from scratch, and a lot of times what it was is letting people know that student life existed at MIT, because that was a new concept back in 2013, 14 when I worked there, because they're like, what is student life? Like, what do you do? And then there was also this idea of from people where it's like, well, MIT students don't really use social media that way, so you're not really going to be able to connect with them or engage with them. And so I just kind of set that. I'm going to prove that wrong. So I started reaching out to them,
you did.
Yeah, and what I found was like they at no point would anyone say no to me. Like a lot of them were like really excited just for the opportunity to represent your institution. Like especially if you lead it with, I think what you're doing is awesome. I don't want you to change anything about it except like just don't swear, don't do anything to get me fired, don't do anything to get you in trouble, but who you are, like these things that you're posting, this is what I like. And I give them examples. I'm like, I saw you did this, I love this, and if you could do that, the only thing I ask if you're going to work with us is just be yourself. Don't think about like, I bet they want me to sound this way, because I don't feel like that's what connects people. Like that's like almost like that's like brochure strategy from like the 90s and 80s.
It's not authentic, right?
Exactly.
We want to hear like the authentic voice of the students and the character.
Exactly. And so, and from there, I've learned like anyone, for the most part, 90%, 95% of the people you reach out to are more than willing to help you, especially if you let them know that you're reaching out because you like what they're doing.
Okay. So flash forward, you're a director now. You actually have a team.
Yeah.
You have a team, but you still have brought that philosophy, right, with you and onto your team. So can you tell me what your team is doing a little bit?
Yeah. So basically we're kind of, I believe that every part of your social presence should be used as a tool. These aren't just places where you go to post things, and monitoring and listening shouldn't just be based off negative things. And so like, that means, who are you following? Who's following you? Who are these people who are tagging you? Like, look through their content, see what they're doing. How with like the rise of TikTok and this idea of like algorithms and For You pages, who's popping up on your For You pages connected to your community? And how are they doing the job that you're setting out to do, is like showcasing your institution in the best light, in a way that connects them with other people and could bring people in. And then once you see them doing those things, you're like, why can't we work with them a little bit? And whether it be reaching out to them for a long-term project, which is like internship roles to pay them, or it's just a one-off to be like, oh, we see that you do all these really cool things where you're going and you're part of the club figure skating team. And every day you just record this and you're getting a ton of reaction on yours. Why don't we showcase that type of content here? We reach out to the student. We say, hey, we like that you do this. You want to do this for our page? It's kind of introducing you. We're going to do it on TikTok. We're going to do it on Instagram. You're going to be talking to your peers, prospective students, and young alumni and showcase that experience. Or like the biggest one we did so far was when we reached out to one of the acapella groups and we said, your content like takes off on your page. So can we showcase this experience for us? And they like remade like a version of Pitch Perfect and like the riff off. And they did that. And like to date, it has almost 4 million views on TikTok and over almost 2 million views on Instagram. And it's like utilizing these like stories.
And that's the idea that they came up with, right? You just said, create something for us.
Yeah, we just we set up the meeting, we introduce who we are, we talk about what we want to do, which is this idea of first you start off with show don't tell, which is a thing I got from MIT admissions actually. Like that was a big part of that strategy, and I kind of brought it to Penn State. And then this idea of we want to treat every part of this institution, whether it be campuses, whether it be the individual departments, students, faculty, staff, student groups, alumni, as individual puzzle pieces that stand on their own, completely unique, and you can put them up there and it tells a story that's them. But then if you look at the whole thing, you get a feel for what Penn State is at this moment. And it's across that. And I think thinking of it that way really opens the floodgates for things such as like showing your thriving, diverse community who's doing really cool things. And you can come to Penn State and succeed by just being yourself and like growing in the directions that you choose to grow. There's always a path here. And I think that's something I took with me from BU to MIT to Harvard to here.
I love that description of all pieces of the puzzle.
If you liked this clip, we highly recommend you listen to the full episode linked in the show notes below and subscribe to Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager wherever you get your podcasts. In this next excerpt, you'll hear Jeremy Tiers interviewing Andy Murphy of Siena College about Siena's innovative program for student marketing interns. In this episode, Jeremy and Andy discuss the pivotal role of these interns in enrollment strategies, insights on engaging Gen Z, the critical importance of data in crafting content, and strategies for creating a sense of FOMO to increase college yield.
One of the things I'm most excited for listeners to hear about today is this amazing team of student marketing interns that you all have created and developed. So you're up to 18, is that right? Is that where we're at now?
Yeah, it's a very busy fall semester. I mean, we started this program 7 years ago, and we had one intern on our team. And over the years, we've really grown it to be this mass audience of student content creators, student marketers who are energized and ready to help us reach our enrollment goals.
Walk me through, because a couple of things, if I have this right. You were one of those marketing interns when you were a student at Siena, correct?
Correct.
But you weren't intern number one.
I was intern number one like 10 years ago. And so I interned with Allison and our team all 4 years at Siena. And then when I got hired right out of college at Siena, the first thing that Allison had me do was to go find an intern. And so she goes, I think this is a really great professional development opportunity for you, like overseeing an intern. And from there, I've kind of really built it up through one semester, and then I just kept growing and growing. Everything that we've done in the program has been an original idea of either myself or from my past experiences. And I was also an intern at a higher ed agency down in Virginia. And so I kind of modeled what I wanted my students to learn the way I was having my own experiences as an intern. And so I've just run with it. And there's been a lot of successes. There's been some failures. There's been great opportunity for learning and growth. And it's been really beneficial for Siena to have these interns every semester.
So what has been I mean, if you had to narrow it down, I'm sure there's a bunch of things, but if you had to narrow it down to one or even two, what have the biggest benefits been in terms of having those students? And we'll get into kind of some of the things they do here in a moment, but having this program and growing it like you have, what are the one or two biggest benefits you've ultimately seen?
I think now that we have to market to Gen Z, and Gen Z is so particular about the content that they see and resonate with, having these interns share the story in an authentic way allows us to reach maximum engagement on all of our content. And I think that's really, really important. I also think we're able to talk in the tone of a 17 or 18-year-old because our interns are constantly reviewing all of our email copy, all of our captions, all of our ads to make sure it's in the way that they would want to hear it, not, someone who's 10 years removed from college.
And so let's kind of go through a day in the life of an intern currently at Siena. Give the audience some ideas of things that typically you're having them do when they come in, how many times a week they're coming in. I mean, any details you can share, just kind of day in the life stuff.
We treat our interns like a full-time employee of our marketing staff. So they're coming in and we're taking a look at, so let's just say, for example, on a Monday morning, we look at what are our ads for the week. And they're able to go into the Adobe Creative Cloud and actually create ads for Siena themselves. I think that's a great learning experience for them. And then we take a look at our email comm flow and our text messages. What are we saying in the text messages? Is it working? Is it not working? How would you say it? Would you click on this ad if it said this instead? And so they do a lot of auditing for us, but a lot of content creation as well.
What did you do when you started as an intern that you've really taken and brought to them that you found work well 10 years ago that is still working? Is there anything, or have you just really had to shift as generations have shifted?
The fact that they're working on actual projects, I think, is critical. And so they can go out into a job interview and say, hey, I did X project, I ran X campaign analytics. I think that's really important for them. It's also critical for our internship program to learn how to create content. Siena has a phenomenal curriculum and they teach you strategy and defining SMART goals. But in the internship program, they're really in the weeds of producing content, making sure our 15-second videos are short and concise, our ads are on brand, and the animations are all working. So I think being able to learn some of those technical creative skills that I learned a little bit as an intern, but I've really grown that part of this program.
Let's talk a little bit about the hiring process, because as you said, you started with one and you're over 15 now, almost hitting 20. Is there a plan in terms of how big this thing is going to be able to become in your brain and actually have it be, what you want it to be? And just, let's talk about how you're choosing how you hire these students. Are they just submitting resumes? Are you going to certain professors and asking for feedback? I mean, walk us through just how you're finding these student interns.
It's a bit of a mix. I would say the first thing is obviously we have a career internship portal that students can reach out to. But I think the best way that we find interns is the relationships that we build. So our content team, myself, Emily and Dave on our staff, we're always out during class change. We're in the dining hall. We're at all the events. So we're very visible on campus in terms of what we're doing. So our work is heavily seen. And I think when we build really strong relationships, people then want to come work for you and they want to be a part of that atmosphere. And so I'm constantly meeting students and saying, hey, what's your major? Oh, do you hear about our internship program? We offer this program. It's really great. You get real world experience. And then, other than the fact that I'm an adjunct professor, I go into classes. I judge our capstone marketing classes. So I'm meeting professors and I'm hearing, what are the students' needs? Do you have any students that are exceptional that would love an internship with our office? So it's kind of those three different tactics that we use to find students.
And the students that are most successful, if you had to give me 2 or 3 qualities that most of them have, what are they?
They have to be a strong collaborator. They have to have the ability to be both analytical and creative. And I think that blend of a student sometimes is difficult to find. I would say 95% of the students that come through our program, they're very, very shy and timid about the data side of marketing. And so we try to introduce that type of work in a very, fun and experiential way, because I think if you can be strong in data, you can be an excellent marketer.
If you liked this clip, we highly recommend you listen to the full episode linked in the show notes below and subscribe to Mission Admissions wherever you get your podcasts. In our final excerpt, you'll hear Allison Tercio speak with John Reed, president of Glacier, one of the leading digital advertising firms in North America. They talk about how some of the savviest higher ed marketers are discovering and activating student influencers at their respective schools. John shares invaluable insights on identifying potential influencers within the student body and harnessing their marketing power to enhance enrollment strategies. His expertise offers actionable tips for nurturing student creators, making this episode a must-listen for higher ed marketers aiming to leverage the influence of their students. If you enjoy this clip, check out the application wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're not already, my tip is to get in with the communications major, the marketing major, perhaps there might be some kind of creative major that makes sense at your school. We have 17 marketing interns this fall as part of our team. And it's great. That's a lot of work, right? Everyone's probably wondering, what am I going to do with 17 interns? I only have a team of 5, by the way. We have 17 interns. But it's this group mentality that you're talking about, treating them like a team. And I'm really excited. So I'll keep you all posted on how that goes. John, can you talk about any specific examples or successful campaigns where you've seen universities or colleges use student influencers really well?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, you can look at some really large institutions. And of course, like UCLA has an excellent program where they name one clear influencer each year. And that one influencer does an amazing job of producing content throughout the year. But we're not all UCLA. And it's great to understand what our limitations are and how we can do it well, even if we are a small school. And one of the best examples of a small school that's done it incredibly well is Colorado School of Mines. They have over 28,000 followers on their Instagram. And it's because they've really facilitated a lot of user-generated content from student influencers. So I think that's done really, really well in terms of here's a small school clearly punching above its weight online by allowing good, authentic content early on. Like they were doing it years ago before it really started to pick up in higher ed. Other examples is Community College of Baltimore County. They have a Fresh Faces campaign every year where they've been doing it for multiple years. So now it's a very sustainable program where they can create student ambassadors focused on social media development. And one that we worked with really closely was Ontario College of Art and Design. And you can imagine, as you spoke to, like you're looking for those communications majors, those marketing majors. And certainly at a school of art and design, there's lots of creative minds. And so it was tons of fun to work with them in terms of finding those types of students that are going to put forward really creative, really fun posts. And so those are a few examples of schools that have done a good job creating earned media opportunity. But there's also many, many examples that we work with or that I've seen of just institutions that have done a good job of finding any student to create user-generated content to then repurpose into paid media as well. And so when you start to see those ads where you're like, wow, this production quality seems low or fits really perfectly in with my TikTok scroll, but that's a university that's not the usual university ad that I've seen. That might have been produced by a student that really gets it. And I think that's a great example of schools that you don't necessarily see the high following or TikTok page at all, but you recognize that they found students to create some content for them that they've then repurposed across all the platforms.
Yeah, we sometimes have students be in the video that's inviting students, for instance, to an open house, and those are always the best performing ads. So even if it's not the student using their own personal social media to advance the institution's brand, there's so much opportunity on our own channels to be putting students out there before our messages even, like let them speak. And that's being an influencer in a way too, I'd say.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And I think that is kind of a problem is people start thinking about student influencers and they immediately jump to creating their own organic page. And sometimes that's just not realistic. It's too much. So, but that doesn't mean you should dispel the use of student influencers completely. Understand where else you can use that content, whether it is just on some paid media ads, or it could just be a single event, like you said, just inviting other students to an open house. And how can you use it beyond starting your own TikTok page when it looks like you're staring up at Mount Everest? there's other little smaller hills that you can tackle first.
Yeah, that's what we like to focus on this podcast, because some of these ideas are big, right? So what are those first steps that everyone can take to make these ideas actionable in our own context? Are there any tools or platforms that can help this process of collaborating with student influencers?
I mean, we've certainly in our experience, we found it to be a lot of manual work. And so I think that's why colleges and universities hired us to do it. But certainly and one of the things that we had done for many years was just focus on high school age students, recognizing these as prospective students that would be attending these colleges and universities upcoming. But as privacy laws have become more stringent, that's become too restrictive to really access these under 18s. At the same time, their habits online have changed so drastically over the last 3 years. An easy example is to just think everyone used to have their Instagram page. It was all public. Then it started moving to private. And then now young people will often only allow 1, 2, or 3 posts to remain visible, and then they immediately archive everything. And that's just their habits changing. So I think it's something where we don't do that anymore, but it still remains fairly manual. There's not one clear, quick way to quickly get to influencers and have one platform or dashboard where you can set them all up and do things. That being said, access to students' unions, clubs, like you're talking about the marketing, that's certainly a good place to start. And then finding out some of those softwares where you can repurpose that content to be used again. And one great example that I recently started speaking about is a company called Goodkind. And what they do is they take user-generated content and they actually text it out to students, prospective students. So anyone that you have in your CRM, they will text out that message that one of your current students generated saying, hey, we've got an open house coming up in a couple of weeks here. I went to my first open house here, loved it. Now I'm a student. You should go too. And texting that out to all your prospective students. And that's something where you on your end are taking care of the student influencer side, and you're finding a software that allows you to get that message out really targeted, really effectively.
I love what you're saying, because honestly, it comes down to good old fashioned relationship building. So you're not going to find this, from what I'm hearing, by sitting and trying to deep dive into social media profiles and sort of chase a trail of students that you're seeing online. You've really got to get out of the office. You got to go make relationships with students, because then that's how you're going to find the students who are into this, who are creators in their own right, who have these ideas, who want to be featured in your social media, but you've got to go find them, like in the real world, not on social media.
Thanks for tuning in to this special episode. The Enrollify Network has podcasts for presidents, marketers, admission professionals, and more. Find your next favorite podcast at enrollify.org. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.